Jason Rzucidlo, reporting inside the original Cottage Inn Restaurant here in downtown Ann Arbor. And I'm joined by U of M professor Ralph Williams. How are you today?
I'm very well, Jason. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You too, very good. So first start off by telling me a little bit about your background and your career.
I'm Canadian born. I came to the United States for college. I went to the University of Michigan for graduate school, MA, PhD. And then my first teaching job was Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. They'd made me a job offer to stay when I graduated, and then they came back a couple of years later and said, "Didn't you like Ann Arbor better than New York?" And I had loved Ann Arbor, so I came back, and here I've been since. I love the University of Michigan.
Now, you're one of the stars in the new movie Answer This. First off, how did you find out that you were going to be in the movie?
Well, I got an email from the director and the writer of the script. Chris Farah had been a student of mine, and then he had done a stint with me, more than once actually, as graduate student instructor in the course on Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and then the course on the Bible in English. Brilliant lad. I hadn't seen him but once in the years since he'd graduated, and he came to a lecture that I had been giving in Santa Monica. It was a delight to see him then. But then a few years later I heard from him saying, "I've written a script, would you do a part in it?" And I thought very highly of Chris. I hadn't known he was doing screenwriting, but I was terribly busy just then. And I wrote back, acknowledged the email, but couldn't respond at that point with a yes or a no. It was just... And time went on, and Chris kept asking. And you know how it is, it got to the point where I was embarrassed to do anything but say yes. And I did. And I thought at first that it was likely to be a handheld camera and someone at his side. Well, it turned out he showed up with a producer, first of all, and then 70 people showed up from Hollywood with certifiable stars and so on. And so that's how I got involved with it. I learned a massive amount from it, huge respect for the actors, for the sound people, for the camera people. So it was a marvelous experience.
What was the experience like during the actual shooting?
That was engrossing, really. I was much in admiration of all the actors and tech people. I'd done some work in the theater, Jason. I knew of the difference in working with film, but I hadn't done it at that level. And I came to have enormous respect for the way in which an editor would take a large series of takes and really create the role. I'd rather had the notion, seeing film before, that actors did a role as they would do in the theater. But really it's vastly different. In the theater, on a given night, if one's doing, say, a Shakespeare play, one will do one's part, and one has done it oneself on stage that night. And it's a certain compact act with its integrity that evening. In film, there will be multiple takes, as you know, not necessarily in a chronological order. And then the editor will take these and really create the role out of the material which the actors have presented. And so film, as I came to understand, is in every way so profoundly social an art. There are so many people involved in the creation of a successful film, and then particularly that editor who must choose and nuance. So I was exceedingly grateful that we had a really fine editor who managed to make something out of the material that I gave, for example. The professional actors were ones whom I came to admire a great deal for the skills they already had.
Okay. So please tell me a little bit about the plot of Answer This for those who maybe haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. It's essentially a growing up, coming of age story. I play a professor at the University of Michigan who, not by coincidence, does the same courses I have done at Michigan, who has a son who is at graduate school stage. And the relationship between the character whom I play, Professor Tarson, and the school, and then Professor Tarson and his son, is one which is in many ways diverse from ways that I would be. The father in the film, as I came to conceive the role, is one who is head over heels in love with what he does. Now, that resembles me. But he's so in love with it that he can't imagine that his son doesn't want the same life. And so, without intending to be oppressive, he functionally is. And his son then is cribbed, cabined, and confined, really, by his father's expectations and unwitting pressure. And the story is of the ways in which the son attempts to create his own life. And it involves, at last, rejecting the father's projected path for him. The son's sense is that it is possible to construct one's own meaning out of seemingly trivial pursuits, if you will. He doesn't aim at a grand narrative for his life, and certainly not his father's grand narrative. And so the reference to Trivial Pursuit and pub trivia and the title, Answer This. The question really is, how will one create one's own life? The film is essentially a love song to the University of Michigan and to Ann Arbor. And for those who see it and know Ann Arbor, there won't be a dry eye in the house. It will be a moment of celebration and poignancy combined. For those who don't know Ann Arbor, it will be a wonderful introduction to the city. Ann Arbor never looked so beautiful